Okay, so today's new unit is the web-based development. Yeah. So I believe that you must know, and everyone knows nowadays, the web, what the web is, and how it is developed. And unfortunately, today the Patrick is not available, but he is also, in IT sector, and he must have, lots of concepts and everything. He must know. And but you simply ask, a silly question.
Sorry.
What chance to
Oh.
Hello?
Hi, Ajax. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear the last I heard was something
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
and it broke out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Simple question, silly question. Did you get the ever chance to write the HTML code?
No. So I'll be quite I've web development isn't my isn't my strong area in IT. So for me, this module is where I will get a lot of learning. I have a basic understanding of HTML, structure, XML, things like that. But yeah, I'm not an expert.
Okay, good. No worries. So you have understanding, but did you ever try to write a simple HTML code and try to test on the, web browser?
Maybe a long time ago, like Hello World and things like that.
How long ago?
Maybe about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, good. Yeah, no worries. That's good. So you just tried, a simple program of the HTML and didn't get a chance to know more about the web programming and, the server side programming, client side programming. Yeah. So no worries. So let us start and from the basic concepts and, the aim of this unit is to learners will develop an understanding of the web-based development. Yeah. A web-based development means development for creating the web pages. They will research different technologies that can be used to create a dynamic and interactive websites, and they will use this research to develop their own website. So definitely you should be able to produce a website. They will investigate e-marketing and SEO techniques to promote websites, and they will suggest appropriate techniques to solve business problem. Learners will create a backend database to allow the database to interact with the website. They will critically review the web-based solution against client requirements. So can I ask a question? The difference between the static web page and the dynamic web page?
So some understanding of a static web page has the data written or hard coded on the web page, whereas a dynamic web page would have to call a server or a database to retrieve the data to update it. So for instance, a static web page could be something like a home page where the text doesn't change. Whereas a dynamic one would be a news feed that would rotate and change as new news is coming in, and it would retrieve that from maybe a database.
And how about the static one?
So the static one would be something that would be more hard coded.
Yeah.
It wouldn't really have to call a database to get its data because.
Okay. And from where the static page would be coming?
So the static page would come from it would be in the HTML document.
Yeah, but from where it would be coming?
The server.
Server again, yeah.
Yep.
So both the static page and the dynamic page would come as a code, yeah, on request from the server, yeah. And the difference is that HTML page would be hard coded and saved into a file, let's say in HTML format, and it does not need to be created, dynamically. However, the dynamic page would have been created, its code would have been created dynamically and as per request. So possibly it could be just the combination of it could just be the HTML, for example, created dynamically, or a concatenation of some of the code of the HTML and some of the contents from the database. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good definition. So overall, what we deal with normally, that's called the client server model. Yeah. So what happens on the internet, every PC, yeah, sometime is either a client or server. Yeah, whichever the computer is connected, so they work like most of the time. Obviously they are a client, and the server is also a computer. The client is also a computer, but the difference is that a client requests some of the data, and the server is to serve and produce the data against the request. Yeah, simple. Then furthermore, in the client server model is a distributed application structure. Yeah, so distributed application means previously there used to be a kind of standalone application. Yeah, only one computer used to be the participant. Yeah, however, in the client server model, the application is distributed, composed of the client and server, that partitions the task or workloads between the providers of the resource or service called the server. So server has some resources in the form of service maybe, and service requesters called the clients. Simple. So these are, already the concepts, but they are some terminology for these things. Yeah. So clients and servers communicate over a computer network on a separate hardware. Yeah. But both client and the server may reside in the same system too. Do you agree?
Yeah. So just looking at this from a networking perspective, the client side sits higher up in terms of the application layer, whereas the server side would probably sit a little bit further down. I forget the term, but you know how.
Yeah. Are you talking about the three-tier architecture, or you are talking about the OSI model?
Yeah, the OSI model. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely the servers, and the protocols, they lie on the further, further down layer, which is a network layer, and furthermore there is a layer. Yeah. And the application tier is the first model. Yeah. And that's basically definitely the in-depth concept. I appreciate that you have given an idea of it. However, the server and the client could also be determined by the three-tier application. So the middle tier is basically the server, and the front tier is basically the client. Yeah. And backend is the database. Yeah. So what happens most of the time, the middle tier would be a kind of the server designed into in a distributed computing, like it could be remote method invocation, it could be the RPI, yeah, or other kind of service, yeah, and the database could be stored on the same computer as well as on the other computer as well. Is it possible?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. For example, the Hotmail server, the email server, the one computer would only be listening to the request of the number of clients, but on the back end, there would be hundreds of the computers which would be storing the emails into the database, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes.
So in the client server model, it could be viewed into three-tier application as well. And how we see those things, we can see always any software application, yeah, and if it is based on the network, then it could be further divided into 7 layers of the OSI model. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. So some basic definitions about the client server, and let me go to the further more details. And so what you need a browser, Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer. You know very well about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the basic HTML is we're talking about the client side development. So the client means the browser, the output, or the code which would be used or compiled or interpreted, yeah, by the browser would be the HTML code. Yeah. So HTML is hypertext markup language, is the standard markup language used to create a web page and web page applications. Yeah. As elements form the building blocks of pages representing formatted text, images, form, inputs, blah blah blah. So what you can do, you need the basic HTML code which is in the form of tags. Yeah. How you create an the HTML tag? You start with the HTML tag, then close with the HTML, then you define the body of the document, and then you define, let's say, more elements, maybe the picture, the image, img, src, then their addresses. You can create the table. So whatever you code, and there is particular for example, so anything which would be inside these tags or delimiters, yeah, would be shown to the web page, and the tags would be eliminated, or they have a meaning to the compiler only. Yeah. So this thing would be shown into your web page. However, the tags, yeah, which have a delimiters, yeah, they would be skipped. Yeah. So with the help of these tags, you try to create a web page, and obviously, for example, something is uh, in front of you, then you are only having these tags, for example, and maybe, for example, any other simple page. Yeah. And then uh, there is a game of basically the HTML as well as, yeah, scripting language. Yeah. So let us move to the next slides. Then after the HTML, the next is the CSS. Yeah. So what happens? Did you get a chance to learn about the CSS?
I've not had a great deal of exposure to it. I mean, Most of my work has been evolved around JSON and XML.
Okay, okay, good. So no worries. CSS is basically used for the styling. Yeah. What happens when you created, let's say, HTML, yeah, and HTML got the sections like the standard tags like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, for example. By default, heading 1 has a standard size, heading 2 has another the standard size lower than the heading 1, and every tag has predefined default sizes. Yeah. So whenever you want to make your life easy, then you write some CSS code and you define the size, the color, and other parameters into CSS file, and then you can apply those styles directly. It would override the properties of the HTML tags, and you would get as one kind of similar formatting on to be applied on any number of the HTML pages. Got it?
Yeah.
So like what would happen, CSS is a kind of uh, uh, the bottle of paint. Yeah. So whatsoever the color of the wood may be, or whatsoever the color of the wall may be, it would paint the same color on every type of uh, the page or the HTML. Yeah. So
yeah.
that's about the CSS. Yeah. And then the client side script. Yeah. So that's basically the Java, and the fifth one is basically the Ajax. Yeah. So do you want to say something about the JavaScript and the HTML? Oh, sorry, the Ajax.
Ajax does ring a bell, but I can't remember exactly what it is. But my understanding of JavaScript is the code that you can use to control the web page and what it does. So, for example, if you were doing an online course where you're presenting buttons to the user, then you can use JavaScript to control, if the user clicks this button, it'll open up this this display, or it'll display this text or this data, etc.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So basically, JavaScript is the client side scripting. Yeah. You can also say that for example, the HTML is the static language. It would show you whatsoever you have written into the HTML, you will get a static output. However, at some point, before submitting any request to the server, you want to, let's say, select or validate, yeah, some of the inputs, whether, for example, you want to select some of the options from the drop down menu. Yeah. For example, you belong to which country, then for your ease, the pop-up menu, along with a predefined list, would come in front of you with the help of JavaScript. Yeah, it can also help you validate. For example, the phone number must be in the digits. Before you submit the phone number to the server, it would be the role of the JavaScript, a client-side script. The client-side script would run on the browser, yeah, and it would work like a kind of dynamic client-side script, yeah. So it can work as a dynamically as a program and a kind of interactive program, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that's about the client-side script, and then Ajax is basically kind of technology, collection of standards based and standards based and open source browser technologies. While a classic web application refreshes the entire web page with each response from the server, yeah, the Ajax enabled web application allows small amounts of data and user interface markup to be written from the server. So what happens? Did you get what does Ajax says?
So I think I understand Ajax now. In the project I'm involved in, we developed a user interface that was web based, and we used I believe we used Ajax because the UI would be pulling data over the data access layer to present to the user. So what it would do is it would call all the requests, and I believe Ajax either calls them, retrieves them, and then enables the browser to view that data before the web page is refreshed.
Before the web page refreshes, yeah.
Yes.
But how?
Or presented, should I say?
I mean, what is the benefit of using Ajax?
It means that your content will display display all the content to the user, and orchestrates the request to get the right data.
No, basically Ajax is, for example, this is a web page, yeah, and literally there is a header, there's a body, and there's a footer. So every time you request, yeah, a new page, what a server has to do, a server has to return the whole page along with header and body and the footer, yeah, in normal cases, yeah. No matter, obviously, if it is a dynamic, then every time this body would be changing. Let's say the inbox would be keep on changing. This is the email server. So the Ajax says that using the Ajax, this portion of the web page would remain same, and only this portion would dynamically be retrieved from the server, and even this part will not be refreshed at all. Got it?
So just to understand that. So what it's doing is it's only having to refresh the data that's required and not everything.
Yeah, like a partial refresh. It refreshes the data, the dynamic data of a page on a partial basis, so that the applications should not get a reflection or the reflection on the user interface. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically the application. You would never notice that your request is basically going to the server and coming back, but automatically if and even we are grateful to the technology as well. The speed is too much, yeah, that it works like in the instantly, but still, yeah, if the server is located too far, maybe let's say in Australia, we are in UK, then the whole page request can still take longer. But like if this is a kind of, let's say, Hotmail inbox, then the, let's say, your username, password, or the title and other sections would remain as it is. They will not be reflected at all, yeah, only the body would be reflected. So that's because of the Ajax, yeah. Then
Okay.
Yeah, then there comes the web development frameworks. So apart from the basic HTML, yeah, the basic HTML coding, some frameworks have been developed in order to do the programming of those web easier. Frameworks typically, take all the difficult repetitive tasks in setting up a new web applications, either does them for you or make them very easy for you to do. So which frameworks, help you meet here? So it helps you from the front end to the back end, JavaScript framework, Node.js, a server-side JavaScript framework. Yeah. And Ruby Rails, even, for example, the .NET framework, you must have heard about it.
Oh, yeah.
So these frameworks help you to write the, applications, yeah, of web development, and obviously their vendors, they get their own credit and they have a more competition in between, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So you are not only, doing work hard, you are not supposed to work hard on coding, by manually, but these frameworks help you make your life easy. Yeah. So for example, you are not supposed to write, for example, a template, yeah, a theme, and grafting a theme, very each and every, bit on your own manually, but these frameworks would help you to create a nice, websites very easily and, without any problem. Yeah. So for example, the WordPress, yeah, the WordPress gives you a kind of, the framework, yeah, a content management system where you get, you only need to add the content. However, the design is already made for you, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
WordPress, Joomla, and many more, the frameworks. Again, there is a category like a CMS, that comes under the CMS, and however, the other programming techniques, which are given here, they have their own features. Yeah.
Yep.
So simple that whatsoever you are going to do, you need a help from the framework, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, server-side development. Yeah. So like we discussed earlier, the dynamic websites. So what happens? You always need a server. Yeah. And what the server does, server generates the or responds to the client request, and in the response, yeah, either the server gives the content of a predefined or hard-coded web page, or generates the automatic generates the code configured within the a particular program, right?
Yep.
So what happens, let me get you the idea quickly. If the page would be static, would have been saved into HTML, yeah, and the code would go back to the HTML in tags into the browser and to the client, and it would be the responsibility of the browser to interpret the HTML and show the output. Yeah.
Yep.
If it is written into the PHP, yeah, then the code would have been written into the PHP, like index.php. What the code inside the PHP would do, again, there would be, like I explained about the HTML tags, yeah, they have limiters and delimiters, like a less than and greater than. They have a specific meaning to the compiler, yeah. So that particular, PHP code, and PHP code would be a combination of basically, the HTML code as well as PHP code, the final output of the PHP code would be a static HTML. Yeah, that would be thrown to the client. Yeah. So what would happen, for example, this is, the PHP file. Yeah. Then some of the PHP code would be written here, and its responsibility would be instructing, let's say, hello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Its responsibility, this PHP code responsibility would be put hello world, into what? Into, let's say, let's say some of the code here, and Ray. So for example, you inserted Ray from your browser, then what the PHP code would say, hello, for example, hello, and it would add, whatever you had input, and finally would say here, let's say here, hello Ray. So this complete, the HTML output here, it is generated, it is in the static form. But how it became the static? After the effect of this, PHP code, this PHP code concatenated some of, the bits into the static. For example, hello was predefined, and this Ray came into the input. So this is basically the dynamic code generated, but after the generation of the code, the final code is again converted into the HTML and displayed to the client and returned to the client.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah. So what it does is the template and the frameworks there. It's the content that gets transferred to the web page via HTML from the back end.
So what happens? When it is a dynamic page, then the code is written into particular language. If it is a PHP server, then in the PHP language. If it is a Java, then the Java language. And after the interpretation, the code is converted into, finally HTML. But whatever the code is generated, it is generated dynamically. Yes.
Yeah.
For example, basically Google has become, the greedy now. The first click whenever you do, it takes you to, the advertisement. Did you realize it?
Yes, I've noticed that quite a lot actually. Yeah.
So now see, this is a PHP, code. This tag is HTML. This tag is also HTML. This tag is also HTML, and this, the less than, symbol and question mark and writing PHP and then closing inside between echo is a, hello world. This would concate and finally, will give you the result of hello world. However, you could say something here.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is like, this has been, uh, like I was saying, that concatenation of the HTML and the PHP code or the server, code, and you can see the view page source as well here. How it would have done. For example, it would have done like heading 1, yeah, and maybe like heading 2, yeah, or simple text. But this could be, let's say, for example, if you would say like 2 plus 2 here, yeah, then what do you expect here?
I expect 4.
4 here. So the processing would have done on the server inside the code dynamically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically the idea behind the dynamic, content. We always need the dynamic content, because the static content is, not useful for us. We always need a dynamic. For example, our emails are stored into the server, hundreds and thousands of emails, our calculation, the prices of the items, yeah, and let's say the total number of items available on the sale, or the, discounts, offers, many more things, their pages, everyone wants their, wants to view the items, for example, on a commercial, website. Then they look up the contents dynamically, and those contents are generated dynamically. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the idea behind the dynamic page. And the dynamic page is basically written into the uh, particular program, and that particular program basically drafts, yeah, or drafts, a complete HTML, page, yeah, for the client. And it's really basically the difficult thing, yeah, that the way you wanted to create one static, the HTML page, and you are going to create, a runtime, page. Then assume how you would be imaging. You would be imagining, let's say that write some code which should be static, and then put some, code which would, be replaced with the static one. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the idea behind. Then let's move a little bit further. So popular languages, one of them is a new, like Node.js. Yeah, Node.js, the newest in the list and the fastest growing today, released in 2009. It is used to run JavaScript code on the server side. The great thing is that you do not have to learn a new language for back-end development. The JavaScript that you use for front-end rendering can also be used in the back-end. So this is one of the new thing, but it is a script, JavaScript. So what happens, probably they have given a, kind of easiness, that the same code could go inside and could run on the server as well. There is sometime, the need that every time, the client side scripting, you don't want to be run on the, client, yeah, but that could also run on the server as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, we need a more time to discuss on it, but just, I have listed here. And is it okay if I move further?
Yeah. Don't worry about languages, because I mean, just to make you aware, Ajax.
Yeah. So the main thing is that, yeah, this Node.js is a new thing. It's a scripting. It's a because it's similar to JavaScript, but it runs on the server, and obviously it has a disadvantages, the advantages in particular case studies. So further, if we will go into the detail, then definitely it has some value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. So just to make you aware, Ajaz,
Yeah.
although I'll still review these languages in my own time, etc.
Yeah.
But my personal preference from a professional perspective is
Yeah.
I'll probably stick with Python technologies and
Yeah.
frameworks.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. So then, the PHP and Java, in Java especially, the JSP, Java Server Pages and Servlets. Have you heard about it?
I have, yeah, JSP. Yeah. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when you say that uh, when it is the server-side programming in Java, it means it is using the servlets or Java. So servlets is a pure programming effort in the Java, and the JSP again gives a layer to program things easier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then Ruby and the Python, and these are the more uh, uh, more or less the same idea behind the programming languages. Only there's a difference and advantages and disadvantages. Yeah.
Yep.
So now the most important topic and is the web services here. So let me give you the idea what we have discussed so far. Although we have taken longer, but discussing on the client side and the server side. The third topic is basically the website development, database design, three-tier architecture, like we discussed earlier. The front is the user interface. The middle is the server itself, and the back end is the basically database. No matter if it is the on the same computer or spread across lots of database servers. Yeah.
Yep.
So more or less the first point and the second point is almost covered. Now we talk about the web services. I can give you the idea and when very clear definitions and examples, and there are lot of stuff I have included, but let us try to discuss first, and then we can conclude. Maybe we need a more time to discuss on it, or probably you would be happy to understand quickly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
web services, do you know something about the web services?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert, but for example, we use we use JSON and sometimes XML and REST APIs to communicate between systems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm aware that web services is essentially a mechanism to allow communication between two applications, essentially.
Yeah, but what is the benefit of using the web service?
Okay, so the benefit of using the web service is that it's a standard set of protocols and interfaces that you can use, and you can configure it to the way you want to manage your data exchange.
Okay. And what are the pillars of the web service?
Pillars, I don't know.
Okay. So basically, the web service is a server should work like a service, yeah, instead of a kind of uh, the hard-coded server. Yeah, like
Yep.
that it should not be the specific purpose. The server should work as a general purpose. Yeah, and if it is a general purpose, means it should be accessible via any kind of the client. That's a one thing. Yeah, if there is a server, yeah, then it should be accessible by everyone, number one. Number two, it should be discoverable easily. Yeah, so how it is possible? It is possible using the service oriented architecture. Yeah, so what does the service oriented architecture say? That a service provider should have the description of the service, yeah, written in a predefined language. First thing, yeah. Then the service provider should publish that web service description into the registry of services. Yeah.
Yep.
Then the client should know about the server and should be able to find the service from the service broker or the registry or the universal directory, and by finding the web service interfaces, the service consumer should be able to interact, avail that service from the service provider. Previously it was necessary for the service consumer to directly contact with the service provider. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, they used to work like one to one. However, using the service oriented architecture, that gave an additional layer into the architecture where the services could be found more easily and being used by more number of consumers on the basis as a service, because it would not be the service that only one person would be using, but the service, any anything, any item serviced as offered as a service should have been used by number of clients, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. For example, if there is a server which does the addition, so instead of for example, the client, yeah, uh, could do addition 2 plus 2 by on their own, they could find the provider. For example, 5 of the providers can do like a 2 plus 2. Then you can select the provider. Probably one provider is charging £5, another provider is charging £8, and the third provider is charging £10. So you find a service provider from the registry, and then you interact with the service provider and get the service. Yeah.
Yep.
So service, for example, then there comes a concept of the web service composition. Yeah. So for example, if you need a flight, yeah, then you would be looking at the list of available flights. Yeah. Airlines. Yeah. Unfortunately, not the Thomas Cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately not. Then what you would get, you would be talking with them with their servers. Yeah. And if you
Mm-hmm.
found it, then another server would give you the available hotels. Yeah. And then you could combine the travel trip. Yeah. You can organize the travel trip, and again unfortunately won't be the Thomas Cook. Yeah. So uh, so that's basically what the web service composition. Yeah. And the service-oriented architecture, is supports the web services, and the three pillars are the server, the service provider, service consumer, and the registry. And what they use, the service provider need to define the web service description, yeah, their description into a language which is the WSDL, web service description language. And the communication, the overall communication should have been done using SOAP protocol, yeah, simple object access protocol.
Yeah.
So these are the pillars. Now see, so this is the description, I explained. So service is kind of a reusable component, and then characteristics of the service like supports open standards, loose coupling. Yeah, loose coupling is that the code is universally acceptable and usable by everyone because they use the XML. Yeah. Then like three pillars uses the SOAP, simple object access protocol. So every provider would be using the SOAP, yeah, and the service description would have been written into the WSDL, yeah, and the services would have been listed into the UDDI, Universal Description, Discovery and Integration. There's a directory, yeah. So how they do? So they are done with the help of XML using SOAP and WSDL, yeah. So that's the idea behind the web services. So furthermore, web services provider, requester, registry, and more detail on WSDL, and WSDL contains the functional description and the non-functional description, and SOAP has some the text, and it takes like a SOAP envelope and a few more things. And then there is a RDF. RDF is also the being used into the web services. It gives you an idea for writing or describing the resources available on the web, yeah, especially in the form of web services. Yeah, it's a big topic basically, but it helps you to give basically the meaning to the web services. Yeah. So what happens, for example, if somebody is selling the service, then the particular keywords may not be sufficient for search. Yeah. So using the RDF, you can define a semantics to the service as well. Yeah. And XML. So overall, the SOAP, the WSDL, would be used within the XML. Yeah. And because XML is acceptable, XML is the language where, for example, you can use in any platform and any programming language. For example, you wrote the program in the Microsoft platform and you want to access it into the Java, yeah, and or any other programming language, then the XML would really help you. For example, the service is available in the Microsoft, yeah, written into the the C# or the VB.NET or anything, but you can still avail it into another server written the program written into any language. Yeah. For example, the Emirates airline, their airline database and the interface is written into Java. Yeah. Then the services they are offering, and they have listed anyone else. For example, Microsoft platform can easily interact, contact, and extract the information, and redisplay or reconfigure, compose the hotels and others into their web server easily without any problem. Yeah. So that's basically idea behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the rest of the topics are a simple one, the three-tier architecture, and we discussed. Yeah. So I hope you should have enjoyed the idea behind the web services, and web services is not basically the easy topic. It is interesting, it is simple, but when you would really try to do the practical, you need lots of efforts. Like you need a Apache server, you need to write a code, and the Apache is the code into the Java where you can experiment the services. But everything is available, it's open source on the internet, on the YouTube, and you can really when it comes the time comes, you need to write a real web service, then you can do easily. For example, you can write 5 services, and you can do the addition, multiplication, and division. You can ask different services to perform the different operation and compose one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think with this one, Ajax, the web development module, because it's an area I'm not very experienced in, unlike databases and software development methodologies. This is probably something I'm going to maybe work on for maybe a couple of months and then submit the assignment, as opposed to starting to work on it now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So you try your best, and let us finish the rest of the LOs as well, like SEO and their implementation. Even there are 3 LOs left. Yeah. So let us finish those first, and then in parallel you can do the practice, and you are most welcome anytime if you have any difficulty.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
So we end the session today, and see you next week again. Yeah.
Yeah. So
right.
can I say Maharbani?
Yeah. Most welcome. Yeah. Thank you very much. Maharbani, and bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.